Hi, I'm Pat from ulearnoffice.com with an example on how to insert a function to a spreadsheet and also an example on the PMT function. With Excel 2007, what Microsoft did is regroup all the functions into a single tab, and you have, like before, the insert function assistant that will help you through to find the proper function and put in the information required to make the function work. But there's also the AutoSum, and if you press on the bottom section of AutoSum, you'll see the last function that were used, and you can use those also. You can also have recently used, which will give you a little more information. There is also a lot of categories here, and you'll find the financial section, which has the most function in Excel. There's above 100 functions in there. A lot of different options, whether you want to use coupons for treasury bills, to find other financial values. There's also the logical section with logical options, whether you want to use AND or OR options, or determine that a value is true or false, or use the if function, which is very powerful. And you also want to be able to work on text, so there is a section on that, whether you want to use leftmost letters in a cell, or in the middle, or to the right, or some other functions. There's also some functions to get values out of date and time values. And you have a couple of here that are here. Find the workday, the weekday, the workday, and even determine the number of days between two dates. And there's also the lookup and reference to either choose, get pivot data if you're working on pivot tables. HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP functions are very useful when you have a lot of possibilities and you want to pass through a range of values. And also you get mathematical and trigonometry options, which are the ones I hate the most, but they're there if you need them. Greatest common denominator, integer to degree, and the cosinus, I hate them so. And there's also more options here. Statistical options, you want to use the average, beta, and so on, or count the number of values that they are, and correlations, and so on. There's also some engineering functions, cube functions when you have a large database and you want to look through lots of values. Information on the content of a cell. What type of content is there? Is there an error? Is the content blank? Is there a logical value in the cell? Is the value contains only text? And so on. And also with Excel 2010, you have compatibility functions. Some 38 functions were reworked in Excel 2010 to perform better, to give you better results faster. And what you have here is the last of the old functions. And what you should do is truly think of going to the newer versions of the functions. But for compatibility's sake, they're still there. Now let's go back to our example here. I have a small model with values and I need to insert a first function. And what I want that function to do is to find me the payments I'll have to do to pay out a house in 25 years. So let's look at the values I have here first. I just bought a house and the bank gave me a loan for $200,000 at a rate of 5.5%. And I'll have to pay back that loan in 25 years. And I'll do some payments every 2 weeks. So in all, I'll be doing 26 payments per year. Now, what I want to do in cell B8 is use the function assistant to help me to find the result. And in B9, I'll use the same function, but I'll use only the keyboard and enter the data myself without using the assistant. Now, let's first go to B8 and use the insert a function assistant. And that's the window. In the first section, you can put in a question or some input, some text, so that Excel can search and find the proper function that you need. So I'll say I want to do some payments. So I'll just enter payments. And you have the list of categories here. I could go straight to financial, but I'll look through all the functions and I'll press go to see what Excel will suggest. And the very first function it will find is PMT function. If you look at the bottom, you have a description of it. Calculates the payment for a loan based on constant payments at a constant interest rate. Well, we know we won't be keeping the same interest rate for 25 years. That'd be nice, but that's not how it's going to work. But it's going to give you a workbench to see what kind of payments you need to do. Now, if you were going to do some payments on car loans or for electronics or something else, then it would really be for that same period, whether it be a year, 2 years, 5 years. But for a house, it's going to be a little bit longer. You won't be keeping the same interest rate, but it's going to give you a ballpark value of what you need to put every single month for 2 weeks in this case to pay out the house. So I'm going to take payment here. I could look at the other values here and have a descriptions at the bottom. But if I go back to payment, you see that there's the name of the function and there are some other information inside the parentheses, and they're all separated by semicolons in this case. Depending on the options you gave to Excel, maybe the argument separator won't be a semicolon, but it could be a comma. So in this case, I'm going to have a semicolon to split every single information or argument, as Excel calls them, to my function. But it could as well be a comma depending how your Excel is configured. Now for mine, the argument separator is a semicolon. And let's go straight into payment. Press OK. And there's the window where we're going to have to enter all the values we need. Now we need to enter the rate, the number of period, and the current value we want to borrow. And there are other options, but they're not in bold. The ones that are in bold are necessary to make the function work. You can put information into the other ones, but they're not necessary to make the function work. So let's first see, we need the rate. And that's the rate per period if you look at the description at the bottom. So I'm not going to do 5.5% every 2 weeks. It's 5.5% divided by 26. I know a couple of you are going to send me emails telling me it's not the proper rate. There's a small adjustment, but this is just an example for functions and for payment to a certain rate. We're going to take that example to make it work. So I need to make the rate work for every single period. What I need to do is first get rid of the window. The window at present is over my data and I can't read anything. At the rightmost section of your box, you have a button that will hide the window. So if I press on it, the window is reduced. I can move it about. And what I need now is the rate. So I'm going to take 5.5% and divide it by 26 payments. So that's going to be my first argument. Now, in the small window at the very end, you have a button now that will return to the former window. And so I'm going to press on it. And there you go. B4 divided by B6 gives me the proper rate per period. Now, I need to tell Excel the total number of periods that I have. So again, I'm going to just place my cursor in the box, press on the hide window at the rightmost part of the box, and then I need to enter the number of payments. So I'm going to be making 26 payments times 25 years. So B6 multiplied by B5 or B5 multiplied by B6. And I'm going to show, unhide the window or show the window again. And then I need to enter the present value of what I want to borrow. And you have a description at the bottom also. So I'm going to hide the window again and tell it, well, I need $200,000, please. And then unhide the window. And that's what I need. I could enter a future value, which means at the end of 25 years, I don't want just to pay for 200,000, but I want 300,000 or a future value also. and the type of payment. Do I pay at the start of the payment period or at the end? Which means I'm going to be paying less interest because I paid first and not at the end. It makes quite a difference. If you look at the bottom right, you already see the result of my formula, but I'm just going to press OK to confirm, and there you go. I will be making payments of $566.53 for the next 25 years, 26 times a year or every 2 weeks, to pay my house. And if you look at the bottom, I added a couple of formulas here, and in B11 you'll see that you'll be making payments of over $14,000 per year to pay that house, for a grand total of $368,000. My $200,000 will actually cost me, with interest, $368,000. You've also noticed that the values are in negative, and a PMT function will always give you a negative value. If you want to change that, there's two things you can do. Either put a minus sign before the payment function, or put a minus sign before the present value. The function is done, but the problem is I don't want to constantly use the insert function to insert my formulas. I can do them myself at a certain point. Now, the insert function is great when you're starting out, but at a certain point you'll know how the function works and you'll be able to write it down. So it's a great starting point, but in the end you want to enter your formulas yourself. And if you look in the formula bar, you see how the result works out. Now you'll have equal, the name of the function, and right after you'll have opening parentheses, and then you'll be able to enter the information, the arguments as Excel calls them. They're all divided with a semicolon. So I really need three values or three arguments: the rate, the number of payments, and the amount I'm borrowing. So that's what I'm going to do in B9. I'm going to do the same function, but this time I'm just going to use the keyboard to enter the function. So I already know that I need the PMT function, so I'm going to write down equal. As soon as I enter P, Excel 2007 or 2010 will give you a list of functions you can use that start with that function. As soon as I enter M, it's going to find out PMT, or I could use the cursors to go onto the function I need and press the tab key to select the function, and then I can enter the value. Now, even if I'm writing this function by myself with the keyboard, I still get help from Excel, because under the function I see the arguments I need to enter, and the first one is the rate. So I know the rate will be 5.5% divided by 26 payments, and I'm going to put the semicolon. And as soon as I do that, you see the value in bold has changed, and now I need to enter the number of payments. Now I have to know what a number payment is, or I can put my cursor over it and a help window will appear giving me more information on that value. Now the number of payments in this case is 25 years times 26 payments per year, semicolon, and I only need to enter the present value, which would be the 200,000 or B3. Close the parentheses, press enter to confirm my function, and there you go, you have the same value. And this time I wrote it down instead of using the insert function assistant in Excel. Now you know a little bit more about the PMT function and also how to find and use functions.